Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Prashant Kulkarni. I am the head of Neurosciences and Research at Avinav Bindra Targeting Performance, Mohali, Punjab. Today, I am going to speak with all of you regarding the role of stroke rehabilitation. Okay, so now when we talk about stroke rehabilitation forms a major chunk or forms the major part in case of the neurophysiotherapist's work profile. Why is this so? This is because there is a large prevalence of stroke patients throughout the world, and current research indicates that there are around 14 million people who are suffering from stroke worldwide each year. If you now break this down into the genders, we can say that 1 in 5 women and 1 in 6 men suffer from stroke. So naturally, you can see there is a slightly higher prevalence of the women who suffer from stroke. What about the definition of stroke? It is a very easy definition, even the layman also can understand it. It's nothing but the death of brain cells due to the lack of oxygen. The brain cells are otherwise called as the neurons. So you can understand this, that if there is any cell in our body and it is being deprived of oxygen, after a certain period of time, because of the deprivation of oxygen as well as the nutrients, there is going to be the death of the cell. The same holds true even in case of the neurons. After a particular period, they also will definitely die. And once the neurons die, the problem is the part where they are supplying becomes paralyzed. Now there are two types of stroke which are present. Like I had said earlier, the definition of stroke is nothing but the death of the brain cells due to the lack of oxygen. So when we say that there is a lack of oxygen, right, it could result due to two reasons. One is we say the ischemic cause, the second we say is the hemorrhagic cause. The ischemic cause is mainly due to the obstruction of the blood vessels, and the hemorrhagic cause is due to the rupture of the blood vessels. Both of them will eventually lead to a lack of oxygen for the neurons, lack of nutrients for the neurons, and there will be a death. Now, whenever you are suffering from a stroke, as a patient, you must be aware of this particular thing. You should very well ask your consulting, be it a neurosurgeon or be it a neurophysician, whoever is the one who you are under, whether you are suffered from an ischemic or an hemorrhagic kind of a stroke. The reason for that is, if you are suffered from a hemorrhagic kind of stroke, the research indicates that the rate of your recovery will be much higher as compared to an ischemic stroke. But there is a particular downside with this. The downside is there is a higher mortality rate as far as the hemorrhagic strokes are concerned. In fact, 20% of all stroke victims, irrespective of the fact that you are suffering from an ischemic or an hemorrhagic one, they will definitely die. That is what they say. The 20% of the people, they die within the first 1 month having suffered from a stroke. So you can understand that you have to be very careful during this particular 1 month period. You should see to it that all your vitals, they return back to normal, right? That is very, very important. You get back to your homeostasis, because you see what happens is whatever pathological condition that has caused this particular thing, homeostasis is when the balance is being maintained. So once the balance has been restored, once your intracranial pressure has been restored, once all these things has been carried out by your neurophysician or your neurosurgeon, and then they give you a green signal, yes, now you go ahead with the stroke management, you must start that off at once. Because like I said previously, that 20% of all stroke victims supposedly die within the first 1 month. Therefore, it is very important that once you are stable, you should also start off with early physiotherapy. To be precise, the neurophysiotherapy component. You have to start off with this particular thing. It is of vital importance. Okay. Now, that is as far as the stroke definition. I think you have understood it. In a very simple term, I have tried to explain the same thing to you. Let's now go one step further, that how will you know that really you are suffering from a stroke? It will be very useful if you can understand what are the signs and symptoms of a stroke, and you can very well save a person's life, because if you know that, okay, he's suffering from a stroke, you have found it out yourself, you will then take that particular patient to the particular specialist. That is, in this case, it will be the neurosurgeon or it will be the neurophysician, right? And you can very well save that person's life. Not only that, it could also be that you are suffering from stroke and you could save your own life as well. Okay, so which are the pertinent signs and symptoms in this? One is there will be what we say as sudden numbness or weakness, which is present in one half of the body. So one half of the body means it could be one half of your face. Let us say the left side of your face has been involved, your left arm is involved, your left leg is involved. Or it could be the right half of the face is involved, your right arm is involved, and your right leg is involved. That is, either you will get a feeling of numbness or you will be paralyzed in that particular part. The weakness will set in. The other signs and symptoms include, you can feel, you feel that you find it very difficult. If it's your relative, your friend, or yourself, you find that there is difficulty in speaking. Or it could be the other way around. If supposing I am speaking to you and I find that you are finding it difficult to understand what I am speaking. So the comprehension also might get involved. So you find difficulty in speaking or you are not able to understand what the other person is speaking. There could also be a sudden loss of vision in one or both eyes. There could be a sudden loss of balance as well. See, when you are walking and suddenly you feel there is an incoordination, there is a sudden loss of balance. That is also one of the pertinent symptoms of the stroke which is there. And also there could be a severe headache, and the severe headache usually results with no known cause, right? So these are the 5 signs and symptoms that if you are experiencing or your relative is experiencing, you could come to a provisional diagnosis that, okay, this particular person is suffering from stroke and it's an emergency and we have to take him to the neurophysician or the neurosurgeon in this case. Right. Now, we move on to the role of physiotherapy in the management of stroke rehabilitation. Now, this is the most vital part. This is what I have come in here for talking to you. I have divided this particular section into 3 parts. Like I said, one half of the body is being involved, so I'm going to concentrate on the rehabilitation of the arm, I'm going to concentrate on the balance rehabilitation, and I'm going to concentrate on the lower extremity rehabilitation. I'm not going to go much into the technicalities or the details of it because this is not really an educative purpose, but it is rather something that you must be aware that these particular techniques are being employed for the treatment of these particular patients, and it is very vital that you must start taking this particular treatment as soon as the homeostasis has been maintained in the hospital. Right. So the first I was talking was about arm. The first thing I'm going to talk to you is regarding the arm rehabilitation. Okay. As far as the arm rehabilitation goes, you know that once the arm is being paralyzed, the quality of the life is going to be greatly compromised in these particular individuals. And therefore, this particular thing that you have to start off with an early rehabilitation is very conclusive, because the research indicates that until and unless you start off with an early rehabilitation, the chances of the rate of your recovery, the chances of the amount of recovery that you can gain from the residual disability which is going to remain will be completely hampered. And therefore it is important, and it has been proven that those people who take in the stroke rehabilitation, let us say you're there in the hospital for 4 days or 5 days, they're discharging you after 1 week, what is commonly noticed is that the whole family, the patient, all of them get very tired. And once they reach back home, they lose the crucial or the vital time which is required for the neuroplastic phenomena to set in, whatever viable neurons are there, for those neurons to set in, so that you start performing the particular activities and you start your recovery process as early as possible. This is what the people, they definitely do not go into. And this is something which is really hampering their recovery process. Therefore, I am stressing again that whether it is 1 week or so that you are there in hospital, start off with the physiotherapy rehabilitation as early as possible. Now, let's move on to the role of physiotherapy in the arm rehabilitation. The first and foremost thing at Abhinav Bindra Targeting Performance in Mohali here in Punjab, what we do is we start off with what is called as high intensity, large number of repetitions and task specific activities. Now to simplify this particular thing, I'll try to explain it to you by saying that if we talk about high intensity, right, your arm has been involved, so the arm includes your shoulder, your elbow and your wrist segment. Once the neurophysiotherapist analyzes you, he will find out that you are, let us say, you are having only 5 to 3 degrees of motion at your shoulder, very minimal amount of motion at your shoulder. Now what he will do is, he will analyze and find out whether, he or she will analyze and find out whether you are having a problem with the synergistic pattern. That is, instead of performing only the pure flexion, that is simply raising your arms straight forward like this, you are performing, say, with some amount of abduction, you are performing, say, with some amount of elevation. Now, the high intensity implies the therapist will see to it that you do not perform all these compensatory strategies, all these trick movements, they are otherwise called as trick movements. He will emphasize that you perform exactly only the specific motion which is possible, and we are saying high intensity because let us say you are able to perform that particular range of motion only for 3 to 4 degrees. He will or she will see to it that you perform this repeatedly at least for 5 repetitions, depending on, that is what we try to find out, what is your repetition maximum. Supposing you are able to do only 5 times, we see to it that you perform 5 times and repeat this sets for 5 times. What happens is the next day when you do, it is but natural because there has been an increase in your muscular efficiency and increase in the muscular strength, to be precise. You will now be able to perform at least 6 to 7 times the same thing and we again go in for 5 repetitions. Believe me, if you think that you can do this particular thing at home, it is not going to be possible because the amount of concentration that is required will not be possible for you to do. You will definitely have to have someone who's motivating you, who's augmenting you in performing this particular activity. Second is, in this particular motor training, I talked about high intensity and then large number of repetitions. Now when I say large number of repetitions, whenever you are having a paralysis, try to understand that 2 types of pathways are going to be involved. One is called the efferent, E starting with E, that's an efferent pathway, and the afferent pathway starting with an A. Efferent pathway means the signals which are coming from the damaged brain cells to your muscles, and the efferent that is the efferent pathway starting with an E, and the afferent pathway starting with the A is coming from your periphery to the brain. Now it is natural that because of the particular pathology that you are suffering from, this efferent pathway is going to be involved. So how do you go about stimulating this efferent pathway? The only possible mechanism is you perform high number of repetitions. So you give an afferent bombardment as many number of times as possible. So that is what we call as large number of repetitions. And what we are wanting is the neuroplasticity phenomena to take place. Whatever viable neurons are there, whether the other neurons are picking up that particular activity. So again, over here, they say that the first 1 year following stroke is of crucial importance, right? I will say that the first 6 months is even more important. That is the particular time when maximum amount of recovery can take place. Therefore, becoming lethargic and staying back and not performing, and then later on expecting that okay, you will have some amount of recovery is a very careless way of going about managing this particular condition of yours. So there was high intensity, there was large number of repetitions, and now I am talking about task specific activity. Task specific activity implies, see, whenever you are performing these ranges of motion as a therapist, you are not satisfied with that. We now want to translate this into a functional performance. There should be a performance enhancement because of it. Supposing you are able to raise your arm to a few degrees, it should also serve a particular purpose in your daily activities. So supposing I encourage you to push the door or pull the door. I will encourage you to lift a particular object if it is feasible. It depends upon each particular person's condition. If not, an active assisted motion will be carried out where you are lifting it, seeing to it that much amount of shoulder motion is taking place, right? Today, I am not going to go very much into details because, like I said, it's not an education kind of process, because for each segment will be carried out. I'll try to be as brief as possible so that you also recollect what has happened in this particular webinar and try to comprehend, have an understanding of it. Right, so that is task specific. Also remember, task specific, we train you both unilateral arm training as well as bilateral arm training. When I say unilateral as well as bilateral, it is because whenever we are performing our activities, like you put on a shirt or you know you are tying your shoelace, or simply pouring, let us say, water from a jug into a cup. Understand? So these kind of things do not utilize only one arm. It utilizes bilateral arm training. So many activities in our day-to-day life is also a bilateral activity. So we train the patient both with bilateral arm training, that is the task-specific one, as well as the unilateral arm training. Okay. This is the first problem. So this is the first way that we go about doing the treatment. Second is what we call as the electrical stimulation. There are many terms, functional electrical stimulator. There are many terms in this. Now, basically, let us say it's an electrical stimulation. The purpose is in conjunction with the motor training, right? In conjunction with the motor training, when your muscle power is 0 and we want to increase it to say 1, at least there should be a flicker of contraction, the electrical stimulation definitely will play a vital part. Now, at our center, we have a highly advanced device. We make use of both adhesive and non-adhesive electrodes. There are pre-programmed suits inside the particular device which will help you in performing the rehabilitation, and these particular parameters can be individualized also to that particular patient. Now, what we do is we apply the electrodes, multiple electrodes in fact, because when you give the stimulation, again let us confine ourselves in this instance to the shoulder only, we will give the stimulation both for the stabilizers as well as for the prime movers, because the stabilizing action is equally important. Due to the stabilizers, then the prime movers can carry out their activity very well. So appropriately, the electrodes are placed in those specific group of muscles which the research has already found out, and their placements have to be done, and then the rehabilitation process continues. So first was the high intensity, large number of repetition and task specific activity which is there. Second one is the electrical stimulation which is carried out. Third one is the robotic assisted arm training, right? Understand this particular component. Robotic assisted arm training is not the same as your electrical stimulation. This is completely mechanically assisted device. Whenever you are performing a range of motion, it is going to be done through a mechanical assistance. So the motion will take place at the shoulder, at the elbow, as well as at the wrist. So you are performing the motions across the body, right? So you are crossing the center of your body across the motions. It will be carried out. It will be carried out away from the body. It will be carried out in the sagittal plane. So all the different parts, the motion will be done by a mechanical assistance. In one of our centers of Abhinav Bilda Performance, we have a device which is called as the multi-joint system. This is almost similar to what is the robotic assisted arm training, which includes basically your armio power as well as armio spring. Armio power is basically given when you have a very severe disability, and as you progress, you go for the armio spring. Now, the fact is, the mechanically assisted device also works on the function of the repetitions, like I had said earlier. Even the therapist will get tired of performing that many number of repetitions. So as far as the robotic assisted device is concerned, it can perform n number of repetitions, 50 to 100, how many are set, pre-programmed in that particular robot, which will help you in carrying out that particular activity. And again, it works through the neuroplasticity phenomena. We then move on to what is called as the virtual rehabilitation. When you make use of virtual reality in rehabilitation, the research states that at least 15 hours are required for the virtual reality program that has to be administered on the stroke patient. Now, we have to remember that I have been talking so much about motor training, right? Having said that, there is a particular time when the patient might get completely tired. He is unable to perform that particular activity. So, what should one do? The virtual reality which is there will help in now motivating that particular patient. This comprises of immersive as well as non-immersive kind of virtual reality, where we are making use of gamings. So when you introduce the gaming into the particular system, the patient becomes highly motivated. And remember one thing, whenever we introduce the gaming is programmed in such a way that the patient will be able to complete that particular task. And whenever a task is being completed, there is what we say as a performance enhancement. It also helps in the release of certain hormones which will make you feel good. And that is what I said, that also we require a motivation part coupled with the normal motor training which goes on. So if you look at it again over here, like I said, 15 hours of training, but apart from that, we are going to split it up, right? Each of them, the patient goes through, let us say, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever techniques that I have just talked to you. When we do this particular kind of a treatment, as you can see, easily you will take at least 1 hour for that particular rehabilitation. So it's a considerable amount of time that you have to spend it. And that's where you require a trained neurophysiotherapist who should be present with you while performing these particular activities. The other form of therapy that we give at Abhinav Targeting Performance will be your mirror therapy. We have a mirror therapy where we make the patient to sit not in front of the mirror, it's rather you are sitting at the edge of the mirror with one hand placed on either side of the mirror. Now, one of the most common problems with a stroke patient involves the wrist. Right, the wrist is actually there in a flexion position. It could be due to spasticity or it could be just due to flaccidity. Now, the basic thing is we have to have some amount of motion, what we call as the wrist extension. This is of vital importance. Okay, so when we talk about this, we have to perform with wrist extension. Now, we ask the patient to sit by keeping one hand placed on either side of the mirror. Okay. We then ask him to lift the unaffected hand. Again, I repeat, we ask him to lift the unaffected hand. The patient looks at the mirror and we ask him to imagine that it is his affected hand which is actually moving. The purpose for this being that we create what are called as mirror neurons in the particular patient's brain. How is this being useful? I can explain this to you through an example. See, we are always looking at things which we like and then we try to copy them. We literally try to copy them. Let us say that, you recently the Olympics has happened. We had PV Sindhu who won for us the bronze medal. Now there will be many fans of her, right? So you keep watching her when she plays and somehow when you go back into the court and you play, why is it that you try to copy her? That is because there are certain mirror neurons that have been created in the brain. And because these mirror neurons have been created in the brain, without having practiced that earlier, you try to mirror yourself performing that particular activities. So again, you try to use this particular therapy for the performance. That's the basic thing. Apart from this, we also make use of strengthening exercises. Now, strengthening exercises is also of vital importance, which unfortunately people have not stressed on. But it definitely plays a very, very vital role. And based on your manual muscle testing, you find out for the individual muscles. Let us say for shoulder, you know that for flexion, you have the anterior deltoid, you have your biceps brachii, you have your coracobrachialis, you have the pectoralis major. These are the 4 group of muscles which enable you to perform what we call as shoulder flexion. It is nothing but simply raising your arm. When we sit and train all these particular individual muscles, the cumulative effect of them will definitely prove to be beneficial in performing that particular ranges of motion. So this is how you go about training it. That is important. Now we move on to the second component, because I think this is sufficient information that I have now shared on to you as far as the upper limb rehabilitation. Therefore, I said that we keep splitting this part. Okay, we keep splitting it in 15 minutes, 15 minute, 15 minute session, and it goes on for a considerable amount of duration, and that is how the therapy has to be carried out. Okay, now we move on to the balance training. Balance training, there are 2 parts. One is your sitting balance, which will be impaired, and another is the standing balance, which will be impaired. As far as the sitting balance is impaired, we have a highly advanced device which is called as your trunk MF. Here, you make use of a surface for sitting which is highly unstable. In the sense, we make it highly unstable, and the amount of instability which can be brought about on that surface is controlled through a computer. So you are facing a computer screen. We start off with a slightly stable one, and then we increase the complexity of it by making it more and more unstable. We could go the other way around also by keeping it highly unstable for those patients who do not have any motion, because we want to encourage the amount of motions which are required. Basic thing over here is there is the pelvic motions that are being created, and these pelvic motions are very vital to maintain the particular balance, the particular dynamic sitting balance as well as the static balance. And on the screen, there is a graduated increase because there are certain markers. So let us say you're moving forwards. First we can keep it at 5 centimeters that you move forwards. Once you hit that particular marker, we can then encourage it more further. So it's not just you're moving in one plane, like you're going forwards. You can go forwards, diagonally also you can go. Towards the right, diagonally. Towards the right, backwards, diagonally. You could go laterally on either side. And the same holds true for the left side as well. Now once we have done this, we then also progress to the trunk exercises. They are of vital importance because you are going to perform trunk flexion, you are going to perform trunk extension, you are going to perform even side flexion movements as well as the rotational movements. All these particular exercises have to also be incorporated into this particular treatment program. Okay, so trunk exercises also play a very vital part. Now we move on to the standing balance. As far as standing balance is concerned, we have what is called as a Prokin. A Prokin, it allows us to do an analysis. See, supposing you're standing on this particular platform, it will give us an idea. It is natural that you're suffering, let us say, from left-sided hemiplegia. That means your left half of the body has been involved. It is obvious that when you suffer from this particular kind of pathology, you will try to weight bear on your unaffected leg maximally. Now, how much are you doing that? Where are the centers of pressure? Where is the amount of limit of stability? How much is your postural sway which is present? All these different parameters is easily analyzed by the Prokin which we have. How will that be helpful? Once the patient himself sees that, okay, I am taking more pressure towards my heel rather than distributing the whole pressure throughout my feet, or I am taking more pressure towards my toes or towards my forefoot or towards the medial side of my foot or towards the lateral side of my foot. It gives you an exact picture. Based on this, definitely we can tell to the patient, give him the appropriate interventions, again come back onto the device and see whether there has been a performance enhancement because of this, right? So it's a very simple way, it's a very objective and a simple way of carrying out that particular thing. Again, it's a highly advanced device that we have at our centers. Okay. That is as far as the standing balance is concerned. Research also states that we also have to have task-specific activities so that we improve the dynamic component of the standing balance. So when you are standing, you also have to perform activities which are highly task-specific so that it increases your functional performance. Okay. Now that is as far as the balance component is concerned. Now we come to the final one, which we call as your lower extremity rehabilitation or your leg, which has been paralyzed. When the walking performance is poor, obviously the community activities will be reduced. And once the community activities are going to be reduced, you are going to become housebound and you are going to get isolated from the society. Now this is a very, very common thing which occurs with the stroke patients. Because they are not having a very good walking performance, what happens is they do not go outside. Now in this particular part, I would like to emphasize that there are certain people, I am not saying that home physiotherapy is not good. Home physiotherapy is very good, no doubt about it. It has shown proven results. But the contention is that if supposing you stay only in one particular environment and you're training yourself only in that particular environment, you will become highly performance oriented only in that particular environment. You will now feel completely apprehensive when you go outside. There is definitely a drawback. On the other hand, like I always encourage all our patients, that you must come to the center and then perform your rehabilitation. For the simple reason that when you are sitting in your vehicle, when you are driven down, you come in sight of the familiar roads. You then start thinking, yes, from here now I have to take a second right, from here the second left at this signal. Now your cognitive process has started working. That does not happen sitting in the home. I'm sorry to say that, but definitely it will not happen like that. You will also get depressed with that. So once you come out, you then integrate yourself into the society. That is what we want with the stroke patients, that you have to integrate yourself into the society. The more you integrate yourself into society, believe me, your balance will improve. That is what the research states. Until and unless you perform task-specific activities, there is no way that your balance will improve. And that's what will happen if you confine yourself to the bed. If you confine yourself rather to the home, and then there are chances that you may fall down as well, because you definitely do not have the required amount of balance that is required. So you must be challenged. You must go out to the malls. You must go out to the cinemas. You must go out to your work. This is very, very essential. And for a stroke patient, you have to get integrated into the society. That is what we are emphasizing on. Okay, now let's return to the type of treatment interventions, like how I had discussed with you regarding the upper limb as well as the balance. As far as the lower extremity is concerned, okay, now when we talk about the lower extremity, the first thing we give is an overground training, where we perform what is called as a circuit class exercises. When we say a circuit class exercises, most of the sports therapists are very well aware of that. The same thing holds true even for the stroke patients. We make you perform a series of exercises of ambulation, where you are not trained only to perform while walking forwards. You will be trained to perform walking backwards. You will be trained to perform walking sideways, by crossing the steps, by performing graded activities, which includes side stepping with cross stepping, because you have to understand that whenever you walk, you always face different obstacles. It's not that you can simply walk in a straight plane, right? You face different obstacles. There are a large amount of architectural barriers, and that is the important part. You have to know how to deviate and negotiate yourself through these obstacles as well as through these barriers, and that's where there is an enhancement of your locomotion. It gets much more enhanced, right? The other part we concentrate on is the treadmill walking. Now what we have is not a simple treadmill. We have what is called as a walker wheel. This is a very highly advanced device which has a lot of sensors that are placed underneath. The purpose of these sensors are, once I put you on that particular walker view and ask you to walk, what information I get through the screen, which is depicted real time not only for me but also for you. The first thing will be the amount of pressure that you are taking on your feet. Okay, what is the pressure that you are taking on your feet? It is obvious that with the unaffected part you will weight bear more, and with the affected part you will weight bear far less. That means you will put your weight down. Let us say your left lower extremity is affected, your left leg is affected. You will take as little time as possible on that particular leg and then quickly put your affected leg forwards. On the other hand, you will stand for a long time on the unaffected leg, and with leisure you will take your unaffected leg and then put it forwards, right? A real-time depiction of that comes on the screen through, let us say, bar graphs. So they are nothing but, vertical bars which will give you a representation. Okay, on the left leg you are bearing very less amount of weight. We can also introduce over there an auditory cue. The auditory cue will give you a sign that no, you are not bearing weight very much on this. So now start bearing weight on that properly. The second will be your step length. That is a parameter which is of vital importance, because we will have to measure. We will not have, it is automatically being measured in the walker view, the right side as well as the left side, what is the amount of step length that is being present. Okay, and again over there an auditory cue is present if your left step length is less than your right step length or vice versa. So real time, again you are correcting yourself, and that is what is very important. Real time, whichever mistake you are doing, it has to be corrected at once. Then the afferent feedback will function in its optimum level. Now one of the basic, or rather there are three important uses actually of the walker view. One is it helps in the practice, the complete practice of your gait cycle. It will help in increasing the speed and endurance, and thirdly it will help in optimizing the aerobic capacity of yours. When we look at the complete gait cycle, this is of importance. See, the overground training is one particular component of stroke rehabilitation. Similarly, when you are performing on the walker view, we have to see to it as a therapist that what is the problem which you are facing at the hip, what is the problem which you are facing at the knee, what is the problem you are facing at the ankle. Okay, when you look at the hip, basically one of the problems which is there is a lateral rotation of the hip. As a therapist, when you are performing that particular activity over there, we see to it that prior to taking you on to the particular thing, certain stretching manuals will be performed, a PNF technique can be applied, say a D1 flexion, we have to do a flexion adduction with an internal rotation, so that this external rotation component has first been taken care of, in the sense that you are performing the motion properly. Then once you are there on the treadmill, we see to it that you perform the particular motion in a balanced manner. Okay, so the hip, this particular abnormality which was present, as a therapist I am sitting down over there and correcting it real time. Each and every time you are practicing your gait cycle. Gait cycle is you are completing when one foot is touching the ground and again that same foot touches the ground once more. So now for each part of that gait cycle, the complete practice of the gait cycle will be carried out for the hip joint. Similarly for the knee joint. The knee joint, whenever you are striking your foot, there is first a full extension, then there is some amount of flexion, that is your knee is bending somewhat. Then again it is extending and finally it is bending once more. So all this particular sequence that take place right from your initial contact to what we call as the loading response and then the mid stance. We focus on that particular thing and then we carry it out. The third is your ankle component. As far as your ankle component is concerned, we see to it that the foot drop which is there, it has to be corrected. So an orthosis is of vital importance. Again, it is a neglected part. It should not ever be done like that. An orthosis has to be applied for the patient, because only then the proper weight bearing will occur during the initial contact and during the complete practice of this gait cycle. So let's now, let me not go into even more technicalities. Like I said, it is just to get you an awareness that there are numerous things that as a therapist, with the technical know-how that we know regarding this particular problem, we apply our expertise in this particular part and we carry it out. And in this way, we make you efficient as much as possible and will give you the appropriate treatment. Again, I will emphasize that as early as possible, let us say 5 days, 1 week or 2 weeks, let us say that you have taken for the recovery, you should at once start off with the stroke rehabilitation program. I hope I have been of some help to you guys, and I have given you the motivation that this particular treatment is available, and please do visit our center and make use of us frankly, so that we can help you out during such trying times of yours. Okay, I complete my webinar for today. Have a great day, all of you.